Catch what's going on with the pop culture cosmos and the PCC multiverse. Catch what's going on with the pop culture cosmos and the PCC multiverse. That's the pop culture cosmos.
And the PCC multiverse, airing 7 days a week on internet radio.
Or subscribe to us today through Apple Podcasts or on over 20 of your favorite podcasting options. Or subscribe to us today through Apple Podcasts or on over 20 of your favorite podcasting options. Or subscribe to us today through Apple Podcasts or on over 20 of your favorite podcasting options. All right, we'll go with that. Up next, more in our lightning round of topics with Rob McCallum. This is the Pop Culture Cosmos. I now have to put a brakes because Western Reserve actually asked for 2 segments. So I split and cut in half. So that's what I use sometimes as a read. All right, here we go. On this week's show, we're talking the huge success for Black Panther. A lightning round of pop culture topics in the Cosmic Crossfire, and as games as a service for gamers. All this and more as we once again delve into the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back for another awesome episode of the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glass from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly want to thank you for being part of today's broadcast. And it wouldn't be a Pop Culture Cosmos without my good friend. He's the man, the myth, the legend behind Humanica Media. You got to check out all their great stuff going on today on humanicamedia.com, YouTube, Podbean, and Apple Podcasts. It's Josh Peterson. What's going on, my friend?
Hey. Just I was playing some Fae earlier. Excited to talk about it a little bit later on the show. And tracking those podcast numbers, you know.
Well, I'm glad I'm glad your job is easy. I'm stressing out because it is Girl Scout cookie season time, and Dad's getting just a little bit, he's losing just a little bit more hair each and every time with all the stress going on with what cookies to get, what cookies to give to who, is this order filled? Is this order filled? And it's just stressing me out beyond all description.
But if you think about it, Girl Scouts are actually the most welcome solicitors any time of year, though.
That's true, but for the dad of Girl Scouts, it's that much harder. Well, we've got a great show for you today. It is going to be a lot of stuff we've got on plate for you. In the Cosmic Crossfire, Rob McCallum is standing by. He's going to talk a lightning round of pop culture topics, and we've got a lot to discuss there. Plus, also as well, we're going to be talking about Fae, like Josh had said, and gaming as a service. A lot of these big companies, Ubisoft, EA, and Activision, they're all talking about it. They're all reporting major profits for it. So is it time to just, as gamers, accept the fact that this is the new reality? We're going to talk about that and a lot more on today's episode. But first, we've got to talk the big news in pop culture, and that is the awesome success of Black Panther. It just literally destroyed February box office records this past weekend, garnering over $190 million domestically this weekend at the box office, as much as 192 or even more when the final tally comes about, and a President's Day weekend of around $220 to $225 million. So I ask you, Josh, with all that being said, with all that money flying around at the box office and everybody seemed to be piling into the theaters to go watch this movie, is Black Panther now, in your mind, considered to be a top-notch Marvel hit?
It was very good. It was really good. Very well done movie. I don't know if I'd call it a top-notch like Marvel hit as far as that goes, because I love the Winter Soldier. I love I love a couple of the earlier Marvel films. I don't know. Well, it was a great movie. I wouldn't exactly call it like groundbreaking by any means. It did a good job of championing a lot of like the the social causes, but it those scenes that I would consider groundbreaking were very short. I don't know. I really liked it. What are your thoughts? Like, I want to hear your thoughts on the movie first, and then I'll converse from there.
Well, before I will do so, I want to just let everybody know there will be spoilers for the next 10, 15, possibly even 20 minutes. So I want everybody to know that if you have not seen the movie yet, there will be some spoilers shared out on this broadcast. So please check out the movie today, then head back over here, subscribe to our channel, or head to one of our downloadable networks as far as to check out this episode and be able to play it back for you as far as our thoughts, or maybe just turn it down a little bit on the volume until you get to the halfway point and you can hear a lot of great stuff going on the back end of the hour. But for right now, it is Black Panther. I got a chance to see it this weekend as well. I highly recommend it. It is probably going to fall somewhere in my top 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Haven't really 100% pinned it down as far as it being 3, 4, or 5, but it is up there for me. I thought it was a very well-made movie, very well constructed. Just probably probably in all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, probably the best acted film from a variety of great actors. And when you see all the Academy Awards nominated actors or Academy Award winning actors and actresses that were part of it, just the list just seemed to be going on and on and on, and just so many great performances. And I tell you what, it was just an awesome experience indeed. It was probably going to be somewhere in about 3, 4, 5 area for me. I really enjoyed it. Might even go see it again. You never know. It's just really just has that kind of impact for me as well. It is not the Winter Soldier for me. It is not the Guardians of the Galaxy for me, but tell you what, it is right there in that 3, 4, 5 slot in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it really is something very special. I highly recommend it to anybody out there that's on the fence of seeing it. It does have its social causes, which actually are very important and very, very interesting, and also make it very heartwarming as well. I especially like the thoughts on the first after credit scene that were made by Chadwick Boseman. I really hope that does resonate with a lot of people out there. Also, as well, I liked what was said as far as the conversing back and forth between Chad Boseman's character T'Challa and also as well Michael B. Jordan, who plays one of the best bad guys by far in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's right up there with most, he's right up there with some of the bad guys that have been as far as considered the top notch as far as Loki or even I'm not going to put him right up with her. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I know he's very, very good, and he's either the second or third best villain for me behind Robert Redford as far as in the MCU. I just thought he was outstanding in the role of Eric Killmonger, and I thought he really made a passionate effort to champion his cause in the film. And I just think that yes, there were social causes and social messages, but it really was, like you said in your assessment on Friday's episode, and you got to catch that, the PCC Multiverse, you had said in elaborate detail that it was still just, a very good Marvel movie. I think it was a very good Marvel movie, and it does play a lot to the Marvel formula, but still, it did a great job in doing so. I just love the cinematography, like you had said. Wakanda itself as a nation and as a place in the realm of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it looks like it's going to be a center point for years to come. It looks like it's a very intriguing and interesting place to go and be a part of. And it does seem like it's a great way to kick off this year in the Marvel Cinematic Universe with Infinity War and Ant-Man and the Wasp coming up right behind it. There were a couple elements I was not really, that kept him back from, perfection or true, really, really, really greatness. I think one of them was the pacing. I think was a little bit off in certain spots. Sometimes it was a little bit too slow, and sometimes it was a little bit too quick as far as at certain points in the movie. I also thought Everett Ross's character, and I was reading up and studying up on him as far as his character is concerned. I think he's much better. To me, it's one of those cases where I think he's much more well developed in the comics as an individual as far as a part of the Black Panther universe. I think he's much better developed in that realm in the comic book as far as the comic book series, as opposed to what Martin Freeman did in this movie. I think Martin Freeman was portrayed almost like a Bilbo Baggins at points of time, where it just seemed like he was bumbling through a certain, couple points in the movie, and it just really seemed kind of out of place as far as that's concerned. I think there was a lot more needed from that role, and they didn't get it, or he wasn't given the material, if that's the case. Andy Serkis, for the time that he spent in the movie, was very serviceable. I know you really loved his performance. I thought he was very good as well. He always puts out an outstanding performance, and I think this is no exception. But it really was made for me by the outstanding performances of Michael B. Jordan, also as well Angela Bassett. Whatever she was given, which wasn't enough in my opinion, was very, very good. That she's, obviously, being the great actress that she is. Lupita Nyong'o was really, really good as the girlfriend / love interest / fellow warrior, Nakia. She did a great job. Danai Gurira, which people know as Michonne from The Walking Dead, she is just totally just a kick butt type of individual in that movie, and I just really loved her character as the head of the security forces that protect T'Challa. Well, not that he needs a whole lot of protection, but her as Okoye and her devotion to Wakanda really was made strong in that film, and I really think she came out very well in that movie. And then also just some great other performances by Sterling K. Brown, Forrest Whitaker, and it really all around, it just seemed like a top-notch effort from virtually everybody outside of what was given to Martin Freeman. And I just think as a whole, to me, that's what made the movie so special, is that these performances really made this movie as a whole. With previous Marvel films, you could center on one character or a couple characters that really just stand out from the lot. In this case, I think it was more of a group effort, and just so many outstanding performances really came through in Black Panther.
Right. Yeah. No, it was, I agree with you on pretty much everything you said. I had gone in hearing about the social commentary, didn't really went in not wanting to pay much attention to it, but it does have a good, has a good message. But like I said on the last show, it's not a message that we as white people, I guess, should be like championing. It's a great message, but it's not for us to be preaching, I guess, if that makes sense.
Well, I will say this. I believe what was said in the first cutscene, the first ending credit scenes, I think should be said by everyone. I think it is something that was not just meant for one certain ethnic group or one certain demographic. I think it was made for all demographics, and I believe that part of it should be, something that strongly could be considered by everyone. I like that part of it. But, yeah, I know there were social messages throughout the film that were subtle, some were not so subtle, but I really like the fact that, that was portrayed at that point in time. And I really think that message became clear, especially in the times that we're having right now.
Right. Well, I like the idea that, like, anybody of any, race or gender can be a hero. And I think that's something that Clint Eastwood tried to do in 1517 to Paris, and it didn't really wasn't really delivered that well.
Well, do you think that's because he used the actual individuals involved and not maybe actors that could portray that emotion better?
I've been having conversations about this movie all week. I saw it, and like the acting really took away from the message. And like I appreciate what the guys, I appreciate what the guys in the movie did, and I appreciate them as people, but I just it didn't really sink in very well with me. But as far as Black Panther goes, you're right. Martin Freeman, I don't know how to describe his part. It seems like what it feels like is they're trying to develop him for a future role, and they wanted to let you know who he is as a character so they can throw him into a movie later on. I'm assuming we're going to see him in Infinity War somewhere. It'd be not ironic, but it'd be cool if he ended up with Benedict Cumberbatch, so we'd have like a Sherlock situation.
But I just think seeing his character and then understanding what his role is in the Black Panther comic series as a more forceful, more, tough guy, type of, CIA agent and supporter. Because actually, from what I was reading, he works very closely with T'Challa when he's here in the United States.
Right, yeah, but he, they have a plan for him because they wouldn't have introduced him in Civil War if they didn't have a purpose for him going forward. And did you stayed for the second after credit scene, right, with Bucky?
Yes, okay. There is a second after credit scene. It does involve the Winter Soldier, aka Bucky Barnes, who. The question gets answered obviously from the trailers. Everybody seems to know that by now. It's kind of like a admission already that everything's going to be okay with Bucky Barnes, that he does get healed for that all intents and purposes. So it's not really that much of a secret coming from it. So I think that that was fine for what it was, but I wanted it to set up. I know you and I talked about in our last episode on the PCC multiverse, wanting to set up. Does it do a good job of setting up the Infinity War as far as being a good stepping stone to that movie? I'm still not sure if it was that great of a stepping stone for that movie because it did so much of a job trying to concentrate on telling its own story and doing a very good job in doing so. I don't think it gave much room for telling that part of it. But then again, you're right. As you said previously on the PCC multiverse, there is going to be a segment of the movie that takes place in Wakanda as far as battle shapes up is concerned. So becoming familiar with Wakanda, I guess, in the movie is a key component for audiences going into Infinity War. So from that sense, I get it. I just was hoping for maybe even a little bit more in the after credit scenes or something just to set up the whole Infinity War, or even just to confirm exactly where the Soul Stone, which many people have a good idea where it's going to be or where it is actually at.
Right. I think they did a good job of laying the groundwork for the setting of, one of the settings of where Infinity War is going to start out. I think what they were trying to do with Black Panther is kind of create a standalone movie. They wanted to create something that didn't rely really on the other Marvel films, with the exception of Bucky. But I think Wakanda is very important because, as we saw in the trailer, there is a massive battle that takes place there, and that's important to see. That so they know the groundwork, the setting, the foundation of where that battle takes place. But I don't, honestly, like I wanted to see the Soul Stone and where it came from, but I have a feeling that that's going to be part of the opening of Infinity War, and I'm okay waiting a little bit longer. I didn't feel like what made Black Panther so great was that they didn't suffer from Spider-Man 3 syndrome, where they're trying to stuff too many villains in to set up future properties, and I think that kind of worked in their favor by not doing that, especially since Black Panther is a hero that's kind of it's less known among comic book fans and non-comic book fans as far as like backstory goes. So I think that they were smart in doing that.
What do you think as far as the scenes in South Korea that took place in the first third of the movie? I thought they borrowed a lot, favorably, I might add, from Skyfall as far as the setting, as far as the placement, as far as some of the actions, as what they were doing and communicating with each other when they were in a gambling casino. And it just seemed to have that kind of same feel that Daniel Craig did when he was in a similar type format in Hong Kong in Skyfall.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. So one of the things, if you remember on Friday's show, what I was talking about, one of the things I really loved about Black Panther was the way that they use colors to create their scenes. And that's one of the things in Skyfall too. If you notice when he's going, Daniel Craig's in that building, he's about to kill that guy, is that reflecting off of the mirrors are all of the electronic billboards and lights that are outside of the building. And I think that's one thing, that the colors were a lot brighter in Black Panther, but they kind of, I think that's one of the things that makes Korea such a great place to shoot film, is that they have all that stuff to play with. And I think it's kind of an untapped, location for film shooting, and we're probably going to see a lot more properties take place there. But why not? I mean, those scenes were beautiful, especially the ones where Black Panther's running along the buildings and stuff. Like those were awesome. Those are some of my favorite scenes. So I think they were smart in doing that, and we're probably going to see a lot more of that in the future.
Well, like I said, it does. Well, like I said, it does pay homage to Skyfall in some of the looks in that casino scene, which I don't mind at all, because Skyfall is a favorite of mine, and I think it was a very good way to pay homage to a Bond type setting. And actually, just the way they set it up almost seemed Bondian-like, with the mission structure, how they laid it out, how T'Challa got the the weapons and whatnot laid out to him by Shuri, who was played by Letitia Wright, who was incredible in the movie as well. She really was good at what she was doing as far as laying out, almost like the gadget man for Bond does. Just laid it out pretty much in the same fashion. I kind of like that setup, and I think it was a very clear homage to the Bond films in that first part, and I don't mind them doing so. But I want to ask you this. I know Andy Serkis was a big part of what you liked about Black Panther. Were you upset in the fact, and again, this is spoilers for everyone out there, were you upset when the fact that he was, his death was not only very, I don't know, but he wasn't even just barely halfway into the movie when he was knocked off, but also as well, his death used as a pivot point for before Eric Killmonger to go ahead and carry out his evil plan. And are you sad that he's gone at all? Because Claw could have meant so much more to the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Here's the thing. I think that the MCU version of the Black Panther plans on going a lot deeper than the comic books did. I don't know if you've ever read any of the comic books, but they were written for a certain period of time where, it was okay to have cheesy villains, or they're supposed to portray a certain, there's a lesson they're trying to teach you there. I think that the MCU version of the Black Panther aims to go a lot deeper than what the comic books were capable of doing. And because of that, I loved Andy Serkis. I thought he was great. But I'm hoping with this move that maybe we'll see some depth to the Black Panther that we never got in the comic books and animated films. But I could be wrong. But because honestly, like a character like Andy Serkis's, Ulysses S. Claw, like he was such an interesting character, and he was fun to watch that they wouldn't have killed him off unless they have a bigger plan. So I'm kind of going on faith here that they're going to do something with him.
Well, that's what I get for being near bathrooms. Well, let's put it this way. I'm very glad to see that there's still a lot more that they're going to probably show in the Black Panther universe. Obviously, now they have to make a Black Panther 2 if they weren't planning it already, because this movie has been a colossal hit. The 5th largest opening in U.S. box office history, and totaling out in its first 3 days almost $400 million worldwide in its first 3 days is just truly incredible for a movie of the stature, about the time frame, coming in February and not in the first week of March, and all that. This is just incredible for what it's doing, and just beyond expectations that even a week ago that it was going to do this well. So very, very good signs indeed for Black Panther. But any last thoughts on Black Panther? Did you, again, Josh, you said it was a very, very good movie for you. For me, like I said, it's in my top 5 as far as the Marvel Cinematic Universe is concerned. What overall do you think is going to be the positives that come out after all that's said and done when you talk about Black Panther?
What worked really well for Black Panther was that everything that Marvel has been trying to do for the past 10 years and everything that didn't work, they had somehow managed to perfect with the Black Panther. And that was cool to see that all those past mistakes come to life in a more remedied fashion. And, Black Panther, I think is not just a great film for what it was trying to do, but I think it's great that it kind of sets a precedent going forward that, this is the standard that we're going to set forth with Marvel films. Because think about it like this, like Black Panther, it really did set a standard. And going forward, if they're going to be pumping more money into bigger properties for Marvel, they're going to be taking what they learned with Black Panther and applying it to everything else going forward. So I think that's a really good, Black Panther is not just good for doing what it's done box office wise, but it's a good standard to set for all future Marvel films.
I couldn't agree with you more on that. It is a great standard for future Marvel films, and I know that now the pressure is really on Marvel's Infinity War. I wouldn't say necessarily Ant-Man and the Wasp. I don't think anyone should put Ant-Man and the Wasp in that type of realm with Black Panther's opening. I think there was so much momentum behind Black Panther and so many individuals that wanted to go ahead and make this film a success and truly did so. I don't think it'd be fair. I don't think it's a fair apple to apples type situation when it comes to Ant-Man and the Wasp, especially because it's a sequel to a film that actually performed at the lower end of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's not that comparison, but definitely if you're Marvel Infinity War fan and you're looking at that film being a major success, you've got to be inspired because Black Panther has done huge numbers. It shows that superhero fatigue isn't quite there yet. And there's still hope that the Infinity War can not only reach those lofty numbers that Black Panther hit, but exceed them by even more and bring the Marvel Cinematic Universe even more to life going forward. What are your thoughts on Black Panther? It did huge numbers at the box office, we're looking at possibly even a $230 million President's Day weekend for the 4 days here domestically. And by the week's end, we'll be over $500 million worldwide. What are your thoughts on the movie itself? We'd love to hear from you. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. When we come back, we've got a lot to talk about with Rob McCallum in the Cosmic Crossfire. He's going to do a lightning round of a lot of little pop culture topics that have really just gotten to him and gotten him involved as far as trying to go ahead and ask me a whole bunch of questions on. We're going to be doing that over the next few minutes or so right after the break. But first, we've got a great song from Josh's good friend, Chad Smith. He is part of Hyperschmidt, and this is... Didn't have prepped again. Which one I'm going to choose. Gotta wait for the Olympic music to end too. Which one might I choose? And this is Fighting Eyes, and this is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And this is Fighting Eyes, and this is the Pop Culture Cosmos. And we're back with the Pop Culture Cosmos. My name is Gerald Glass from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. Thank you so much for sticking with us, and appreciate Rob McCallum, as always, stopping by in the Cosmic Crossfire. Just so happy to have him part of it. And you want to check out all of his great stuff again on robmccallumfilms.com with the Kitty documentary, his Backdoor Busted crowdfunding, and so much more. But Josh, you've got a great thing going on with Humanica Media. So what is new and coming up to everyone out there that they need to know about when it comes to Humanica Media?
Well, we have a new episode of Topicocalypse dropping a little bit later tonight. You can expect a new Super BS cast coming at you this week. And also Tuesday nights, check out Attack of the Humanicans on the Podcast Radio Network. And that's all we actually got this week. We're running a little short on materials.
Well, that's still okay. There's a lot of great stuff indeed. That is Attack of the Humanicans on the Podcast Radio Network every Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Also, check out their great stuff today on their YouTube channel, Apple Podcast channel, and also Podbean as well. For us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos and Friday show, the PCC Multiverse, remember, you can catch us live streaming now 7 days a week. That's right, 7 days a week. And let me give you the heads up on where you can go each and every day to live stream our show, either on the Live 365 app or TuneIn. You can try on Sundays. We're back to back on Good Talk Radio. On Mondays, we're on the Podcast Radio Network, where we're the #1 show on that network, and we're truly thankful for it. Croc Radio and Gray Cloud Radio have us on Mondays as well. Tuesday, it's the Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting Network. Wednesday, it's Gray Cloud Radio. Thursday, it's Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting again. Friday, it's Croc Radio, Gray Cloud Radio, Western Reserve Digital Broadcasting, and of course, the PCC Multiverse on the Podcast Radio Network, Friday nights, 10:30 p.m., 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And then also Saturday, we're on Gray Cloud Radio as well. Or you can subscribe to one of our channels for downloading, and you always get extra bonus content. And you can do that on Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, the Tangibound Network, the the ESO Network, Gun and Geek Network, Player.fm, Mixcloud, and a ton of others as well. So a lot of great options for you to catch our show, and we truly thank you for doing so indeed. Josh, I know you've been following all these financials that Electronic Arts, 2K, Ubisoft, Activision have all been doing, and they've all been starting these catchwords as far as their games are concerned, about the games that they sell and they put out there that are just, okay, we're going to put this game out there and see how many it sells up front. And then there are the games that they put out, out there that have a lot of attachment and a lot of extra life to it, whether it's through loot boxes, whether it's through microtransactions, whether it's through DLC. The catchphrase now for it, I guess, it's been going around for a while, but the catchphrase for it that's come about is called games as a service. And I know Ubisoft recently was the latest one to talk about how much more they make from these games as a service as opposed to the regular games that they just ship out and just leave out there, as far as the type of games that are just maybe the Assassin's Creeds or these story or campaign games that they just put out there, or even sometimes downloadable games that they just put out there and they really can't attach a whole lot extra to it. What are your thoughts on these games? What are your thoughts on these games as a service, in regards to a lot of the mobile, a lot of the PC, and also even the console content that's out there that have a lot of extended future as far as a lot of attachments to it, because they seem to be making and generating a lot of money for all these developers and publishers?
I am actually surprisingly okay with it. I'm not down with loot boxes, but look at it this way: like, these games, if they're not able to, they're not charging more money for this stuff now, especially with like Xbox Games Pass coming out. But it's the same thing as, like, look at movies. When movies first came out, they were pretty cheap to make. I mean, at least compared to today's standards, they're cheap to make. But now, as people want bigger and better movies, they're becoming more expensive to make. It's the same thing with games. And we've talked about this on the show before, is that, as games, video game technology progresses and they have all these new systems, Xbox One X, 4K capability, 60 frames per second, as all this stuff's coming out, like, we want all this, we want all the new stuff, but we don't want to pay over $60 for it. We barely, especially with stuff on like the Nintendo Switch, I talk to people, barely want to pay, $40 for a game, especially, because according to them, it's like, why are they going to pay over $60 for an experience that's going to last them 4 or 5 hours? But here's why, is that we are, it costs more money to make things. So, in terms of like a game like Mass Effect, I totally get it, because look at that game at launch. It was a complete and utter disaster. But if you play it now, from what I understand, it's a completely different experience, because all of the patches have been applied and all the mistakes have been remedied. I think that, that's a good thing for developers if they can they don't have, so that way we're not waiting, 10 years like Final Fantasy 15 for a game to come out. And whereas they can make the game, make the basic thing, make it okay to send out to retailers. And then if there are problems, they can keep building on the game as it's out. If you don't like, granted, it doesn't do much for post-release reviews, but look at Prey. Like, Prey was IGN gave it like a 4 when it came out, because they're having trouble with the game freezing on PC. But after they patched that thing, I'm hearing from people now that Prey is one of the best games they played last year. So I think it works in the developer's favor.
Well, let's go off of that. And I actually, you can actually consider Assassin's Creed, at least the Origins, as far as even part of the games as a service itself, because it's now extending its life through, I believe it does have microtransactions that are available for it. And then also it does have DLC, which in fact just came out recently as well, correct?
Yeah. And from what I understand, going forward, they're working on more legitimate story DLC for the game instead of focusing on, whatever Assassin's Creed is coming next.
And I can see that happening as far as them trying to keep that one going because of all the good buzz that's happened to it. But then you have something like Prey, which is a one-time solitary experience that you play through and then you're done with it. Those type of games seem to maybe be being a little bit considered passe, or something that developers and publishers really don't want to devote much time to because they can't devote much time to it with, like you said, the rising costs of doing business. So they need games out there that will consistently have legs over the long term. Ubisoft themselves has one of the most popular games as a service right now in Rainbow Six Siege, which actually at this point in time is either at or almost near the popularity that it had when it came out, because it came out, it had pretty decent reviews and pretty good sales, but it consistently built itself in the long run with additional purchasing or additional levels, additional operators, that type of deal. And lo and behold, 2 years later, it's actually a much better game and a much better experience for even the casual fan to play at this point going forward. You have more and more games like that are trying to extend that experience, but in order to do so, the gamer themselves has to pay more for doing so as well, because the original experience that they're paying $40 to $60 for, once that's done, they're asking what's next. Do I want to continue and paying those extra fees to get more within this realm, or do I want to go ahead and move on to the next one? And it looks like, from all appearances, from all these reports, these financial meetings, these shareholder consultations that they give, that all these major companies are finding more and more often that these games with the service, games that are out there, for lack of a better term, are really making them much more money, and they're really becoming the viable financial option for them in the long run, which, as gamers, if you don't like it, don't pay for it. But nobody really seems to be adhering to that theory, and they're just going ahead and keep on putting their money down and wanting this type of service.
Right. And also, I think it's a smart business strategy too, because look at, you're releasing a game at launch, and then, you wait 6 months down the line after all the patches and all like the feedback has been taken into account. You can change the game, as the critics and the players are saying things about it. 6 months down the line, you're, not only are all the problems fixed, but you have, you're releasing a special, complete edition that basically gives you 2 chances to make money off of the game. And in most cases where I've played, like, a definitive edition is a lot better than the launch version. So it makes sense that, from a business standpoint, it makes sense, assuming that your definitive edition is a lot better than what you released originally. It just gives the developers 2 opportunities to make money off of it.
It does indeed. And gamers are going to have to be, I guess, resigned to the fact that this is going to be the wave of the future going forward, that this is something that's going to be the norm, and the single player or dual player experience, one time only, or the 20-hour campaign and then they're done with it, is going to be something that maybe it's just not going to be there very much longer. But that leads me to another question when it comes to games as a service. Where does that leave as far as maybe independent or smaller developers making smaller games, as far as downloadable 2 or 3 hours? Like, for instance, what you're playing with Faye, that is not going to really have room for extended DLC or microtransactions or add-ons of any kind. So and so I ask you, is that going to impact those type of games as well? And those developers are going to be releasing smaller games, downloadable games, but with the potential of being able to add DLC, microtransactions, and a lot more to it as well.
The risk with indie games like Faye is significantly less because you're putting less money into this thing, and you only are creating DLC and extra levels, multiplayer stuff, whatever. If the game is well received, so you're not taking as much of a financial risk with a game like Faye. But with a game like AAA, it's almost AAA title. It's almost expected to be good. So there's a lot of pressure on their shoulders to do stuff like this, and often is the case there. I guarantee you a game like Red Dead, the new Red Dead coming out, is that they're already going to have DLC planned for it when they release it.
Well, that's what 2K has said. They literally will not have a game come out unless they can attach something to it of DLC or microtransaction nature.
Right. So they want to, they want to be sure that not only, it's kind of a way of them covering their tracks. Not only if the game is poorly received, they want to be able to wash the taste out of the players' mouths after, everything's patched and all that. But they also want to have you excited if the game does pan out to be good and is, praised by critics. They want to be able to say like, hey, there's more of this coming along. And whereas, an indie game like Faye or Celeste or something like that, they can just say, we pumped a few $1,000s into this game. If you like it, that's awesome. We're stoked. If you don't, it was a minimal investment. And, it's great to see indie titles taking on the role of like big, expansive games. And I think Faye is a very beautiful game. But, like I said, it's a minimal investment. It's a way, especially since this one was published by EA and it's made by Zoink Studios. EA has, less of a financial risk taking with a game like that.
But as a whole, I know you're going to have some great thoughts on it here in a sec. But for right now, just letting everyone know that it looks like, at least at this point in time, going forward, that games as a service is going to be the service for gamers for the most part coming down the road. For the most part, as far as the business format for all these publishers and developers going forward. What are your thoughts on the concept of games as a service? Do you not really mind it? Do you like it because it enhances and it lengthens the experience for you, for your initial investment, even though you still have to keep on putting more money down to get that extended experience? Or is it something that you're going to shy away from and just turn off because of the fact that you just don't like spending any more than the initial $40 to $60 you paid for that video game? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. So Josh, I know you've been playing Faye. I know you really just started getting into it. In fact, I know you even did a stream with Chad from Hyperschmidt on it recently. What are your thoughts on Faye, and how good do you really think this game truly is?
See, it's weird because at first I wasn't, I bought it yesterday afternoon, kind of played it a few minutes at a time yesterday, and then I sat down with Chad last night and we played. I probably played it for like 4 hours, but it's a good game, man. It's not, it's an example of like simple storytelling at its best and simple game development at its best too, because nothing is really refined in this game. Everything is it's all polygons. So you don't really have, you don't really have a lot of textures, but you do have a lot of very bright colors. And I think that's one thing that the game has going for it, but also you don't have to worry about a narrative to drive it forward. It's like you start the game and you end up in the circle and you look around, you know who the villains are, you know what you got to do. You just got to run around and you got to find the stuff that's going to help you beat the game. It's very self-explanatory. And while you're doing it, you're basically you're falling into nature. You hear the music, you hear the streams going, you hear the the wind brushing the grass around, and it's a very beautiful game. It's very well done, and nothing's overly complicated. There's a lot of frustrating parts to it, but it's nothing that you can't get past. Like today, I probably spent a good 2 hours trying to climb the back of a giant deer. But if things, what I like about it is that they don't make you grind trying to do the side quest to get the the upgrades. That there's the upgrades that may or may not help you finish the game. The upgrades are kind of optional when it comes to searching for this stuff. So if you get stuck, you have the option of going back to get these upgrades, but you don't have to. And they have an option where you can sing and a bird shows up and he'll show you where to go. So it's not an overly complicated game. It's fun. It's simple. It doesn't take a lot of brain power to play it. And, I think that's an experience that consoles have long been missing. And the greatest part about it is it's on the Nintendo Switch. So I can kind of take it on the go with me when I'm ready to, when I got to leave the house. So I would definitely recommend playing. Have you seen any of the trailers for it?
I've seen quite a bit of it, including your stream that's available on the Humanica Media YouTube channel with both you and Chad. And I'll tell you,